You know what truly drains most people? It's not life itself. It's the constant pressure to control everything. Control the future. Control people. Control outcomes that haven't even happened yet. But here's the truth few realize. The harder you try to hold life together, the faster it slips through your fingers. There's a quiet teaching from Gautama Buddha that changes everything. Peace doesn't come when life becomes certain. It comes when your mind stops demanding that it must be. Imagine moving through life with a deep, silent trust, where even the confusing moments feel like they're leading you somewhere meaningful. But here's the real question. How do you live like this without becoming passive? Without losing your strength? Look honestly at your own life. Has control ever truly given you peace? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll learn how to trust life so deeply that confusion turns into clarity and struggle slowly begins to fade. Before we begin, your doorway to calm, clarity, and timeless Buddhist insight. And make sure you stay until the end, because a powerful bonus lesson may completely change how you see every challenge in your life. Exhaustion comes from forcing life. Why are so many people deeply tired, even on days when their bodies have done almost nothing? The fatigue you feel is often not from work, but from resistance. The mind quietly argues with reality all day long. It whispers, "This moment should be different. Life should move faster. People should understand me. The future should be clearer." And without realizing it, you begin pushing against the present moment, like someone trying to move a mountain with bare hands. This invisible struggle drains more energy than any physical labor. A quiet truth many discover too late is this: exhaustion rarely comes from life itself. It comes from trying to force life to obey our fears and expectations. A wise teacher once said, "Peace begins the moment you stop wrestling with the present." When the mind stops arguing with what is already here, something remarkable happens. The tension inside the chest softens. The breath becomes slower. The heart no longer feels like it is constantly bracing for impact. Imagine life as a wide river, moving calmly through a valley. Many people panic when the current changes direction. They thrash their arms, desperate to swim against it, believing that control equals safety. But the harder they fight, the faster their strength disappears. Meanwhile, the river itself was never trying to drown them. It was always meant to carry them somewhere new. The suffering was not in the water. It was in the resistance. Think about your own life for a moment. How many thoughts today tried to push reality into a different shape? Perhaps you worried about your career moving too slowly. Perhaps you replayed a conversation, wishing it had gone differently. Perhaps you felt anxious about a future that has not yet arrived. Each of these thoughts quietly demands that life move according to your script. And every demand pulls energy from your spirit. So pause for a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Imagine yourself floating gently in a quiet river at sunset. The water is calm. The sky is wide. For the first time, you are not fighting the current. Your body relaxes as the river carries you forward. Notice the strange relief in that image. Nothing needed to be forced. Nothing needed to be chased. The movement of life was already happening. Now ask yourself honestly, are you tired from life itself or from trying to control it? What would happen if just for today you stopped resisting what is already here? Where in your life are you still swimming against the current? Those who learn to trust the flow of life discover a powerful secret. When the mind stops forcing outcomes, clarity returns, energy returns. Even hope quietly returns. Life begins moving again, not because you controlled it, but because you finally stopped standing in its way. And remember this carefully. The moment you stop forcing life to obey your fears, life quietly begins working in your favor. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I trust my path." 2. trust is not weakness. Many people quietly believe that trusting life is a form of weakness. They imagine that if they stop gripping every outcome, life will collapse into chaos. So they tighten their control over plans, people, and the future itself. But look closely at the cost. The jaw stays clenched. The mind never rests. Even success feels fragile because it must constantly be defended. What they call strength is often just fear wearing armor. And fear, no matter how disciplined it looks, cannot create peace. Trust is widely misunderstood. It is not closing your eyes and hoping things magically improve. It is not becoming passive while life decides everything for you. True trust is something far deeper. It is the quiet decision to release the fear that insists you must control every moment. A wise teaching says, "The strong mind moves forward calmly, even when the path is unseen." The person who trusts does not stop walking. They simply stop trembling at every uncertain step. Consider the bamboo tree during a powerful storm. When heavy winds arrive, thick, rigid trees resist with all their might. They stand stiff, refusing to move, and often they snap. But bamboo behaves differently. It bends with the wind. It sways, bows, and moves with the storm's rhythm. From a distance, it may look fragile, yet when the storm passes, the bamboo is still standing while the rigid trees lie broken on the ground. The secret was never strength through resistance. The secret was strength through flexibility. Life moves like that storm. Unexpected change, loss, confusion, and sudden opportunities all arrive without asking permission. When the mind insists that life must follow a fixed script, every shift feels like a threat. But when the mind learns to bend, something powerful happens. Adaptation replaces panic. Curiosity replaces fear. Instead of exhausting yourself fighting the wind, you begin moving with it. And strangely, the journey becomes lighter. Take a slow breath for a moment. Let your shoulders soften. Now picture yourself standing like a bamboo tree rooted in the earth. The wind of life moves around you. Uncertainty, change, challenges. But you do not snap under pressure. You bend when necessary. You remain steady when the storm passes. Inside that image is a profound truth. Flexibility is not weakness. It is intelligent strength. Now ask yourself honestly, where in your life have you mistaken control for strength? Perhaps you tried to control how others see you. Perhaps you tried to control every outcome at work, fearing failure. Perhaps you tried to control the future so tightly that the present moment became heavy. What would trusting yourself and trusting life look like today instead? Are you still resisting the wind, or are you beginning to bend with it? Because when the mind finally releases its rigid grip, something surprising unfolds. Life does not become more dangerous, it becomes more navigable. And in that quiet shift, you realize a powerful truth. The mind that trusts life does not lose its power. It finally learns how to use it. 3. Letting go creates space. Many people spend their lives trying to add more achievements, more answers, more certainty, believing peace will arrive once something new appears. But look closely at the restless mind. It is already crowded. Every day, it carries expectations about how life should unfold, how people should behave, how quickly success should arrive. These expectations sit in the mind like heavy stones, and the more tightly they are held, the less room there is for calm. Peace rarely enters a crowded mind. There is a quiet insight that many overlook. Peace is not always something you gain. Often, it is something that appears when something unnecessary is released. A wise teaching reminds us, the mind becomes clear when it releases what it cannot hold. Much of our suffering comes from gripping what was never meant to stay fixed. Outcomes, approval, certainty about tomorrow. The mind believes it must hold these things to feel safe. But this grip slowly becomes a prism. Imagine a tightly closed fist. The muscles strain as it holds on with determination, yet a closed fist cannot receive anything new. It cannot accept help, opportunity, or even simple peace. It can only hold tension. But the moment the fingers slowly open, something changes. The hand becomes relaxed, flexible, capable of receiving the world rather than fighting it. The same principle lives quietly within the human mind. Think about how many expectations you carried today without noticing. Perhaps you expected someone to understand your efforts. Perhaps you expected a plan to succeed exactly as imagined. Perhaps you expected life to reward your hard work immediately. When these expectations tighten, frustration follows close behind. But when they soften even slightly, the mind gains breathing space. In that space, clarity enters quietly, like cool air through an open window. Try a simple practice now. Gently close your hand into a fist. Feel the tension in your fingers, the pressure building in the palm. This is how the mind feels when it refuses to release control. Now, slowly open your hand. Let the fingers unfold. Notice the relief. Imagine that same release happening inside your thoughts. Expectations loosening, pressure dissolving, the mind returning to stillness. Ask yourself honestly, what expectations are you holding too tightly right now? Are you gripping an outcome that life has not yet decided? Are you holding on to a version of the future that refuses to change? And if you loosen that grip even slightly, what new possibilities might enter your life? There is always something the mind is ready to release, a fear, a rigid plan, a silent demand placed upon the world. And strangely, the moment that release happens, the mind does not become empty. It becomes spacious, calm, open to guidance it could not see before. Remember this carefully. When you stop clenching life with anxious hands, life often places something better into your open palm. 4. Force blocks the natural flow. Life reacts in a subtle way to the energy we bring toward it. Many people believe that the harder they push, the faster life will respond. So they chase outcomes with restless urgency, forcing conversations, forcing opportunities, forcing the future to reveal itself sooner than it is ready. Yet, something strange often happens. The more tightly they push, the more resistance they meet. Doors feel heavier, people become distant, even simple tasks start to feel like uphill battles. The mind begins to wonder why effort is producing tension instead of progress. There is a quiet principle hidden beneath this struggle. Life responds very differently to force than it does to calm intention. Force carries anxiety inside it. It whispers, "I must have this now, or something will go wrong." And that anxious energy spreads outward into every action. But calm intention carries a different message. It says, "I will move forward, but I trust the unfolding." One energy tightens the world around you. The other allows it to breathe. A wise reflection says, what you chase anxiously runs away. What you welcome calmly often stays. This truth appears again and again in ordinary life. People chase approval and end up feeling unseen. They chase success and lose their peace. They chase happiness and become exhausted. The problem is not desire itself. The problem is the tension that grows when desire becomes desperate. When the mind believes everything must happen immediately, it begins pushing life instead of cooperating with it. Imagine a quiet garden on a warm afternoon. A butterfly moves gently through the air. If someone runs wildly trying to grab it, the butterfly disappears within seconds. The frantic movement frightens it away. But if the same person sits quietly among the flowers, breathing slowly, becoming still, something surprising may happen. The butterfly may drift closer. It may even land nearby without fear. Stillness created the space that force destroyed. Life often behaves in the same mysterious way. Opportunities, clarity, relationships, even inspiration. Many of these things approach naturally when the mind is calm enough to receive them. But when the mind becomes aggressive with its expectations, the natural flow begins to close. This is the quiet energy shift most people never notice. They think the solution is more pressure when the real solution is often less. Take a moment and imagine yourself sitting peacefully in that garden. The air is gentle. Nothing is being chased. Nothing is being forced. Notice how your body feels when you picture that stillness. The mind softens, breathing deepens. In that calm state, life no longer feels like something to conquer. It becomes something to experience. Now ask yourself honestly, where in your life are you chasing too aggressively right now? Is there a result you are trying to force into existence? What if calm patience worked better than pressure? What might unfold naturally if you allowed life to move at its own intelligent rhythm? Because sometimes the moment you stop chasing life, life quietly begins walking toward you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I trust my path." 5. Surrender is silent power. The word surrender often unsettles the human mind. It sounds like defeat, like laying down your strength and giving up control. Many people avoid it because they believe surrender means losing the battle. But the deeper truth is far more powerful. True surrender is not about giving up your ability to act. It is about seeing reality clearly before you decide how to act. Without that clarity, the mind fights shadows, reacts blindly, and creates suffering where wisdom could have guided the next step. Most emotional chaos begins the moment we refuse to accept what is already happening. A difficult conversation, an unexpected setback, a sudden change in direction. When the mind resists these moments, it immediately enters combat mode. Thoughts begin rushing forward, trying to defend pride, protect expectations, or control the outcome. In that storm of reaction, wise action disappears, but surrender quietly removes the storm. As a teaching reminds us, surrender does not weaken your steps, it clears your vision. Think of a warrior walking through a valley covered in thick fog. Visibility is almost nothing. Shapes appear and disappear in the mist. If the warrior begins swinging his sword wildly at every shadow, he wastes his energy fighting illusions. His fear becomes the real enemy. But a wiser warrior behaves differently. He lowers his weapon and waits. He watches. He allows the fog to slowly thin before making a move. Patience becomes his greatest strength because it protects him from unnecessary battles. Life often places us inside that fog. Confusion about the future, tension in relationships, uncertainty about decisions. These moments blur the path ahead. When the mind panics, it begins attacking the fog itself, trying to solve everything instantly. But clarity rarely arrives through frantic action. It arrives through calm observation. When the emotional struggle softens, the mind can finally see what is actually happening instead of reacting to imagined threats. Picture a quiet valley at dawn, covered in a heavy blanket of mist. The trees are hidden, the path unclear. But as the sun slowly rises, the fog begins to lift on its own. No one pushes it away. No one fights it. The clarity appears naturally when the conditions are right. The same process happens inside the mind when surrender replaces resistance. Now pause and look honestly at your own life. Is there a situation you are fighting blindly right now? Perhaps a conflict you keep replaying, or a future you are trying to force into certainty. Could patience reveal something you cannot yet see? What might change if you stopped attacking the fog and allowed clarity to appear in its own time? There is a silent power in surrender that most people overlook. When the mind stops fighting reality, it gains the calm intelligence needed to move wisely. And sometimes the most disciplined action is not immediate effort, but the courage to wait until the path becomes clear. 6. When control stops, life speaks. There comes a moment in many lives when a person realizes they have been searching for answers everywhere, except in the quiet spaces where answers naturally appear. The mind becomes so busy trying to control outcomes that it loses the ability to listen. Every moment is filled with planning, worrying, predicting, correcting. The noise of constant control becomes so loud that the deeper guidance of life cannot be heard at all. Many people believe they must push harder to find clarity. They search endlessly for the perfect strategy, the perfect decision, the perfect certainty about tomorrow. But the deeper truth is far simpler. Many answers already exist around you. The difficulty is not their absence. The difficulty is the noise inside the mind. Control creates tension, and tension fills the inner world with restless thoughts. But trust does something different. Trust creates listening. A quiet teaching reminds us the quieter the mind becomes, the clearer life speaks. This does not mean life suddenly begins whispering magical solutions. It means the mind becomes calm enough to notice patterns it once ignored. When the mental storm slows down, intuition grows sharper. The right timing becomes visible. Even small signals from life, an unexpected idea, a meaningful conversation, a simple realization start to appear with surprising clarity. Imagine standing in the middle of a peaceful forest. Tall trees stretch into the sky. The air is still. Yet, if you stand there shouting constantly, you will hear nothing except your own voice echoing back. The wind in the leaves disappears beneath your noise. The distant birds go unnoticed. The quiet rhythm of life continues all around you, but you cannot experience it. Now, imagine becoming silent. The moment your voice stops, the forest begins speaking. The wind returns. The birds become audible. The hidden music of the world reveals itself without effort. The human mind behaves in the same way. When every moment is filled with reaction, judgment, and control, life's subtle guidance is drowned out. But when the mind grows still, even for a few breaths, something begins to shift. Awareness sharpens. Wisdom rises quietly from within. The answers you once chased begin appearing naturally, almost as if they had been waiting for your attention. Take one slow breath now. Feel the air enter your chest and leave again. Imagine your thoughts settling gently like snowflakes falling onto a quiet lake. Each thought touches the surface and dissolves into stillness. In that quiet water, reflection becomes possible. Clarity appears not because you forced it, but because you finally made space for it. Ask yourself something honestly tonight. When was the last time you truly listened to life instead of trying to control it? What answers might quietly appear if your mind became just a little quieter? In this moment, are you listening, or are you still reacting? Because sometimes the guidance you seek has always been there. It was simply waiting for the noise to end. 7. Slowness reveals wisdom. Modern life quietly worships speed. Move faster, decide faster, achieve faster. The world praises the person who runs without stopping, who fills every hour, who believes that constant motion equals progress. But beneath this endless acceleration, many people feel something unsettling. Their minds are busy, yet unclear. Their days are full, yet strangely empty. Because when life moves too quickly, the mind stops seeing what truly matters. It reacts to problems, but it rarely understands them. Wisdom grows in a different rhythm. It does not rush into the room with loud answers. It arrives quietly, when the mind slows down enough to observe life carefully. When we rush, our attention becomes narrow. We see obstacles, mistakes, and pressure. But when we slow down, the same situations begin revealing patterns. We notice connections between choices and consequences. We begin understanding not just what happened, but why it happened. That is where wisdom quietly enters. There is a simple truth worth remembering. Clarity walks slowly, but arrives exactly where it is needed. Rushing may produce quick results, but clarity requires space. It requires moments where the mind is not chasing the next task, but reflecting on the one already in front of it. Many people move through their lives like someone flipping pages in a book too quickly to read the story. They reach the end, yet never understood the meaning along the way. Imagine a traveler climbing a high mountain path. The eager traveler races upward, focused only on reaching the peak. His breath becomes heavy, his attention narrows to the next step. In his rush, he misses the quiet valleys below, the shifting colors of the sky, the rivers carving their way through the land. When he finally arrives at the top, he feels exhausted, but strangely unsatisfied. He reached the summit, but he never experienced the journey. Now, imagine another traveler walking the same path with patience. Each step is steady, his breathing is calm. Along the way, he pauses, noticing the vast landscape opening around him. He learns the rhythm of the mountain, the way the wind moves through the trees, the way the path reveals itself gradually. By the time he reaches the summit, he carries something more valuable than speed. He carries understanding. Life unfolds like that mountain path. When every decision is rushed, wisdom is easily overlooked. But when the mind moves with calm attention, deeper insight begins to appear. Situations that once felt confusing begin to make sense. Choices become clearer. The journey itself becomes meaningful instead of stressful. Picture yourself walking slowly along a quiet mountain trail. Each step is deliberate. The air is cool, the horizon wide. With every breath, awareness expands beyond urgency. You are no longer chasing life, you are experiencing it. Ask yourself honestly, what lessons might you be rushing past right now? Where could slowing down improve the way you see your decisions? And what would your life feel like if your steps were guided not by pressure, but by calm intention? 8. Uncertainty is the doorway. Many people believe their anxiety comes from difficult situations. But if you look carefully, the deeper source is often the same: quiet demand, certainty. The mind wants guarantees about tomorrow. It wants clear outcomes, stable paths, and predictable results. When those guarantees do not appear, the mind becomes restless. It imagines danger in every unknown direction. Yet there is a truth most people resist accepting. Life has never promised certainty. From the beginning, life has only promised movement, change, and unfolding. This is where many people begin fighting reality itself. They try to force clarity where none yet exists. They demand answers from a future that has not arrived. And in doing so, they turn uncertainty into suffering. But the deeper wisdom sees something different. Uncertainty is not a flaw in life's design. It is the space where new possibilities are born. Without uncertainty, life would become rigid, predictable, and incapable of surprise. A quiet reflection reminds us the unknown is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of transformation. Many of the most meaningful chapters in a person's life begin exactly where certainty ends. A new path appears only because the old one dissolved. A deeper strength emerges only because a challenge forced it into existence. Even the most profound personal growth often begins in moments where the future looks unclear. The unknown is not empty, it is quietly preparing something unseen. Imagine a seed buried beneath dark soil. From the outside, nothing about that moment looks promising. There is no visible progress, no movement toward the sunlight. If someone judged the situation only by appearances, they might assume nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, the seed is breaking open, roots are stretching into the earth, life is forming in silence. The darkness that seemed threatening is actually protecting the earliest stages of growth. Life often places us inside that same soil of uncertainty. Perhaps you are facing a transition in your career, a shift in relationships, or a future that suddenly feels unclear. The mind may interpret this moment as danger, But what if something important is quietly beginning beneath the surface? What if the confusion you feel is not the end of a path, but the beginning of another one forming slowly beneath your awareness? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that small seed resting in the earth. The soil is still, the air above quiet, yet within that stillness, life is unfolding exactly as it should. Growth does not panic. Growth does not rush. It trusts the invisible process. Now ask yourself gently, what uncertainty are you fearing in your life right now? Could this moment be preparing something unexpected? Could the unknown you resist today become the doorway to a stronger version of yourself tomorrow? Because sometimes, the place that feels most uncertain is exactly where life begins, working in your favor. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I trust my path." 9. Trusting the flow of life. There is a quiet fear inside many people that something has gone wrong with their life. When plans collapse, when confusion appears, when progress slows down, the mind begins asking painful questions. Why is this happening? Why now? Why me? In those moments, it feels as if life has suddenly turned against you. But the deeper wisdom sees something most people overlook. Life has not broken its promise. It is simply moving through its natural rhythm. Beneath the surface of every human story lies a powerful truth. Life moves in cycles. Periods of clarity are followed by moments of uncertainty. Success rises, fades, and rises again in a new form. Even loss and renewal belong to the same unfolding pattern. The mind, however, prefers only one part of this rhythm. It welcomes growth, but resists difficulty. It celebrates gain, but fears change. And when the cycle moves into an uncomfortable phase, the mind begins fighting the movement itself. That resistance is where suffering quietly begins. A wise reflection says, "The wise move with life, not against it." This does not mean accepting hardship with passivity or giving up on improvement. It means recognizing that every phase carries its own purpose. Moments of confusion slow us down so we can see more clearly. Moments of loss strip away illusions that no longer serve us. Moments of success reveal what is possible when patience and effort align. Each stage is connected like steps in a journey that cannot be skipped. Imagine standing quietly at the edge of the ocean. The waves move toward the shore, rise gently, then dissolve back into the water. A new wave forms, follows the same pattern, and disappears again. The ocean does not panic about the next wave. It does not try to freeze the water at its highest point. Rising and falling belong to the same movement. Without both, the ocean would lose its rhythm entirely. Life behaves in a very similar way. Some seasons feel like powerful waves lifting you forward. Opportunities appear, confidence grows, momentum builds. Other seasons feel quieter, even confusing, as if the water has pulled away from the shore. But just as the ocean prepares its next wave beneath the surface, life is often preparing the next chapter long before it becomes visible. The mistake many people make is assuming the retreat of the water means the end of the tide. Picture yourself standing at that shoreline now. The air is calm, the horizon wide. Watch the waves arrive and fade without anxiety. Notice how natural the rhythm feels. Each moment flows into the next without force or fear. Ask yourself gently, which phase of life are you resisting right now? Is there a moment you wish would disappear, or a chapter you are trying to rush? What if this experience is simply part of a larger rhythm unfolding around you? Because when you finally trust the movement of life, something changes inside. You stop fighting the waves and start moving with the ocean. 10. Patience allows life to deliver. Many people quietly abandon their path, not because the path was wrong, but because their patience ran out. When results do not appear quickly, the mind begins to doubt everything. It questions the effort, the direction, even the dream itself. Days pass without visible progress, and the mind concludes that nothing is working. But what it often fails to see is that life rarely builds meaningful things in sudden flashes. The most important transformations grow slowly, quietly, and almost invisibly. Life often works behind the scenes long before the results appear in front of you. A relationship deepens through many unseen moments of understanding. A skill strengthens through countless unnoticed hours of practice. Even inner peace grows gradually as the mind learns to release old habits of fear and resistance. But impatience interrupts this natural process. The moment the mind demands immediate proof, it begins tearing up seeds that have not yet had time to grow. There is a simple wisdom passed down through generations. What grows slowly often grows strong. Fast success may excite the mind, but slow growth shapes the character. When something develops over time, it builds deeper roots. It becomes stable, resilient, and capable of enduring difficulty. The person who learns patience does not just reach a goal. They become strong enough to sustain it. Think of a mountain rising slowly from the earth. No single moment reveals its creation. Day after day, year after year, small movements beneath the surface push the land upward. From the outside, nothing dramatic appears to be happening. Yet over centuries, that quiet process forms something immense and unshakable. A mountain is not built by urgency. It is built by time, pressure, and persistence working together in silence. Human growth follows the same principle. The person you are becoming is shaped in ordinary moments. When you continue working despite doubt, when you remain steady despite slow results, when you trust the path even before it proves itself, these moments rarely feel heroic. They feel quiet, sometimes frustrating. But they are the moments that slowly build the strength of your character. Imagine a great mountain slowly rising beneath your feet. The ground moves quietly without noise or rush. There is no panic in its process. It simply keeps going, day after day, shaping something that will stand long after the storms pass. Feel the calm strength in that patience. Now ask yourself honestly, what dream have you given up on too early in the past? Was the path truly wrong? Or did impatience take away the chance for it to grow? Where in your life could patience change the result if you allowed time to do its quiet work? Life has its own timing, its own rhythm of unfolding. And sometimes, the greatest act of trust is not pushing the future, but staying steady long enough for it to come. 11. Acting as if life is on your side. There is a small shift that changes how a person experiences life. It does not come from controlling everything. It begins when the mind takes a new approach toward uncertainty. Most people move through life expecting disappointment. They expect things to fall apart, people to misunderstand them, plans to fail. So every step feels careful, tense, and defensive. But there is another way to move through the world, a quieter and steadier way. It begins when you start acting as if life is not your enemy, but your quiet support. This is not arrogance. It is not pretending that nothing hard will ever happen. Life will still bring challenges, confusion, and moments of loss. But the difference is in how the mind understands these moments. Instead of thinking that every obstacle means failure, the trusting mind sees something different. It sees each experience as part of a bigger unfolding, a step in a path that is still showing itself. As one teaching reminds us, the mind that trusts the path walks it with peace. When you begin moving through life with this quiet trust, your energy shifts. Fear no longer controls every decision. You still act wisely, but you stop reacting out of panic. You start noticing how even hard moments carry lessons, changes in direction, or unexpected chances. A closed door may lead you toward a better path. A delay may save you from rushing into something unwise. Slowly, you begin to see that life has been shaping your direction all along. Imagine walking through a thick forest at night with only a small lantern in your hand. The darkness around you feels wide, and the path ahead cannot be fully seen. The mind may panic, wanting to see the whole journey before taking the next step. But the lantern shows something important. It lights just enough ground for the next few steps, and once you take them, the light moves forward with you, showing the next part of the path. The journey reveals itself slowly, not all at once. Life works in a similar way. You are rarely meant to see the whole future. Clarity appears step by step as you keep moving. The person who waits for full certainty stays stuck at the edge of the forest. But the one who trusts the small light they carry finds that progress happens naturally, one steady step at a time. Picture yourself holding that lantern now. The forest is quiet. The path ahead is partly hidden, yet the ground under your feet is clear. You do not need to see the whole journey tonight. You only need the courage to take the next step. Ask yourself gently, what would change if you trusted life more deeply? How would your choices feel if they were not always controlled by fear? And could this quiet trust become your greatest strength as you move forward? Bonus: the moment everything changes. There is a quiet moment in every person's life when everything starts to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because the mind starts asking a different question. Most suffering grows from one thought, repeated again and again. Why is this happening to me? That question carries frustration, resistance, and the feeling that life has become unfair. The mind looks for blame, for reasons to feel defeated, and the more it asks that question, the heavier everything feels. But change begins the moment a different question appears. Instead of asking why, the mind begins asking what. What is this teaching me? This shift may seem small, but its effect is powerful. The moment that question comes up, the mind stops fighting the experience and starts learning from it. Painful moments become teachers instead of punishments. Confusion becomes a chance to grow wiser. And what once felt like suffering slowly shows itself as guidance. There is a deep insight behind this shift. The awakened mind sees lessons where others see problems. Two people may face the same difficulty. One becomes bitter, believing that life has failed them. The other becomes curious, asking what strength this moment is asking them to build. The outer situation may look the same, but the inner experience becomes completely different. One mind feels stuck. The other starts growing. Think of a locked door in front of you. You push against it with frustration, believing something outside must change before it opens. But suddenly, you notice something simple. You are holding the key in your hand. The door was never locked forever. It only needed the right action, the right understanding. The moment the key turns, the door opens. Nothing outside the door changed. Yet everything in front of you becomes open. The same key exists in your thinking. When you stop expecting life to be different and begin asking what the experience is showing you, the mind opens a new way of seeing. Challenges become messages. Delays become preparation. Even moments of pain begin to build a deeper strength that comfort could never create. Picture a heavy door slowly opening in front of you. The air on the other side feels calm and open. As the door moves, you realize something quietly surprising. The key was never lost. It had always been in your hand, waiting for you to use it. Now ask yourself honestly, what lesson might your current challenge be hiding? What if this moment, as difficult as it feels, is building a strength you will need later? Could the very obstacle you resist today be preparing the path for your next chapter? Because the moment you stop asking why life is against you, you begin to see how life has been teaching you all along. Quick summary. Exhaustion comes from forcing life. Many people feel mentally tired, not because life is hard, but because they keep trying to control every result. The mind gets stuck in constant planning, worrying and predicting the future. This pressure creates tension and slowly takes away inner peace. True energy returns when you stop forcing life and start responding to it with calm awareness. Trust is not weakness. Trusting life is often seen as passivity, but in truth, it takes deep inner strength. When you trust the process of life, you remove fear from your actions and start making decisions with clarity. Strength does not come from controlling everything, but from staying steady in uncertainty. Real confidence appears when you act without panic about the outcome. Letting go creates space. Many people try to add more plans, strategies, and expectations to fix their lives. But often, peace comes from letting go of what the mind is holding too tightly. When expectations loosen, the mind becomes lighter and clearer. In that space, better decisions and new possibilities naturally appear. Force blocks the natural flow. When people chase results with desperation, they often create resistance in their own lives. Pressure and anxiety affect thinking and push opportunities away. But when the mind becomes calm, actions become more clear and natural. Life begins to work with those who move with patience instead of pressure. Surrender is silent power. Surrender does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means accepting the present moment before choosing how to respond wisely. This acceptance removes emotional confusion and allows clearer thinking. When the mind stops fighting reality, strength and clarity slowly return. When control stops, life speaks. Many answers in life appear only when the mind becomes quiet. Constant control and overthinking create mental noise that blocks awareness. When you slow down and observe calmly, important insights begin to appear. Life shows direction to those who learn how to listen. Slowness reveals wisdom. Rushing through life often makes people miss important truths. Speed creates quick reactions instead of thoughtful responses. When you slow down, you begin to notice patterns, chances, and lessons that were once unseen. Calm movement allows wisdom to guide your choices. Uncertainty is the doorway. Fear of uncertainty is one of the biggest sources of anxiety. People want guarantees before they move forward. Yet growth and change always come from the unknown. When you accept uncertainty instead of fearing it, the mind opens to new possibilities, trusting the flow of life. Life naturally moves through cycles of change, challenge, and renewal. When people resist these cycles, they create unnecessary suffering. But when they accept that every stage has a purpose, they feel deeper peace. Trusting the rhythm of life allows you to move forward without constant frustration. Patience allows life to deliver. Many dreams fail, not because they are impossible, but because people give up on them too soon. Life often needs patience before results appear. When you trust the process and stay consistent, your efforts begin to build quietly. Patience turns small actions into powerful results over time, acting as if life is on your side. One of the most powerful mindsets is moving through life with the quiet belief that things will work out in the end. This attitude reduces fear and allows your actions to become confident and focused. When the mind is calm and trusting, decisions improve and opportunities become easier to see. Acting with trust changes your whole experience of life. Bonus principle. The moment. Everything changes. True change begins when you stop asking why difficulties happen to you. Instead, you start asking what those experiences are teaching you. This shift turns problems into lessons and pain into guidance. When you see life this way, even challenges become part of your growth. Life becomes heavy the moment we believe we must control every part of it. The mind starts chasing certainty, resisting change, and fighting every unexpected turn. But Zen philosophy teaches a quieter truth. Peace appears not when life becomes predictable, but when the mind becomes flexible enough to move through uncertainty with calm trust. As one timeless teaching reminds us, when the mind stops holding on to outcomes, the path becomes clear. The moment you stop forcing life to move based on your fears, something powerful happens. Your thoughts become lighter, your actions become wiser, and the future, which once felt scary, begins to feel like a field of possibilities instead of a battlefield. So move through today with a quiet experiment. Act as if life is not against you, but gently guiding you. And if this message connected with you, like this video, share it with someone who may need this wisdom today, and share your thoughts in the comment section.